Professor Monica Whitty, Head of Department and Software Systems and Cybersecurity at Monash University. Thanks so much for joining us, Professor. We had the announcement today that Air Vice-Marshal Darren Goldie will be the inaugural National Cybersecurity Coordinator and will commence his term on July 3. Why do you think the government has chosen an Air Force commander to oversee Australia's cybersecurity response?
I can only guess the reason behind this is because they need good leadership in that role. So some might question, do you need a cybersecurity expert to lead it? I think you need someone that has good leadership and good listening skills to be able to listen to all the experts in the room to provide advice. But he needs to be able to rally the troops, to be able to coordinate together their responses to these attacks. So that's why I imagine, I don't know much about his background, but that's why I imagine they would potentially choose an Air Marshal for this particular position.
Okay, and just describe for us, to your knowledge, how will this role differ from the Minister for Cybersecurity?
Yeah, well, the Minister has to develop policy, has to look at the very broad range of this problem. And so this person, from what I'm learning, is looking at the responses to a particular attack. There's so much more to cyber involved, as you can imagine. So in this role, how I'm hearing it is that when an attack happens, how do organisations respond? I would like to see that this position could also look at prevention as well before the attacks occur, although we do know attacks will continue to occur in cyber from now on, unfortunately, but that's the world that we're living in.
Ross Babbage, he's been in the media today. He's a former senior defence and intelligence official, and he's been saying a war over Taiwan would likely lead China to launch crippling cyber attacks on military bases and critical infrastructure assets. Is Air Marshal Goldie's appointment reflective of that concern in Canberra, do you think?
Oh, I don't think so. Cyber has been a big problem for such a long time, and the fact that we've got someone in this position probably took a lot of thinking about how do we develop an overall strategy to work on defending against these issues. And that example may be one particular issue, but we have got worries about cyber left, right and centre. We have it as national issues of state actors. We've also got script kiddies that we need to worry about, all these types of attacks that can actually cause all sorts of harm. So I don't think it's down to one particular cause at all.
Professor, if there was this type of leadership at the time of the Optus and Medibank hacks, what could have been different in our response, do you think? And maybe what would have changed for the outcome for the millions of Australians affected, if anything at all?
Yeah, well, what I would have liked to have seen in that attack is actually what actually transpired, so people understood the problem a whole lot more, and what kind of care and support are going to be put in for victims as well. So not just the fact that they need to protect their data, but what happens to their data and what exactly do they need to do? Also understanding that humans aren't all at the same level of cyber readiness, and so that role could actually coordinate that and understand how to communicate that out to people. And also the psychological harm that happens as well, what kind of support will happen. But I think in addition to that, one of the issues that came up with that attack was actually the question of ransomware. Should we pay ransomware? Should we not? And I think the government at the moment has a hard line on, no, that shouldn't happen. It gives the wrong signal to criminals. And maybe that is the right answer, but I don't think we know yet. So I think this role could actually think more deeply about that, because ransomware is a common strategy now. And if it's not paid, we've seen the harm that can transpire. So I think that needs some more deep thinking and consideration about that particular policy as well.
Professor, Russian-linked criminal gangs say they've published 1.45 terabytes of data from the HWL Ebsworth attack on an estimated 40 government departments onto the dark web. Cybersecurity Minister Claire O'Neil this morning would not be drawn on what sort of information was stolen, or wouldn't be specific of the departments that were affected. But do we have confirmation that government documents have ended up on the dark web from this hack? Do you know anything about that?
I know nothing about what's
Yeah,
gone
okay.
out. I think it's important that we get some transparency over it soon in terms of what might affect victims and what's happening with their data and what do they need to be worried about, what they need to do.
Well, it's really interesting to talk to you, Professor. Thanks so much for your time today. That's Monica Whitty there.